Sometimes you live with someone for years, and one day you realize they stopped seeing you, stopped hearing you, and then someone else shows up, says almost nothing, but somehow understands everything. This is Rachel's story. A regular woman from a quiet town who reached a moment where she had to choose. Keep being just a wife, or finally remember what it means to be alive. This isn't a story about cheating. It's a story about a choice. Stay with me till the end. You might just see yourself in it. That morning started like any other. The usual rush, lukewarm coffee, a quick glance in the mirror. The woman looking back at me had tired eyes and pale skin, but was still somewhat attractive. My long blonde hair was twisted into a lazy bun. I didn't even try to cover the dark circles under my eyes. Sleepless nights had become a habit, just like the emptiness I carried inside. "Brian, do you remember we planned to go to the movies tonight?" I asked, watching him adjust his tie in the hallway mirror. "No time, work's up. The guys are coming over to watch the game anyway," he muttered, not even glancing at me. I pressed my lips together. How many times had I heard the same answer? Our marriage had become a routine. Dull, dry, lifeless. No fire, no warmth. I grabbed my car keys without another word and left the house, slamming the door a little harder than necessary. Of course, fate had to add more spice to my already glorious morning. I had barely driven 2 miles when the car stalled right in the middle of a busy intersection. I tried to start it again, but the engine sputtered, coughed, and died. "Seriously?" "Not now." I groaned, slamming my palm against the steering wheel. I called Brian. No answer. Again. Still nothing. The third time, he picked up, annoyed. "What now?" "The car broke down. Can't you just call AAA or something? I'm busy," he snapped before hanging up. I sat there, gripping the phone, trying not to explode. He didn't even ask if I was okay. Not once. And that's when I did something I never thought I would. I scrolled through my contacts and tapped a different name. "Rachel? Everything all right?" came the deep, steady voice on the other end. "Hi, Thomas. My car's dead. I think I need some help. Thomas, my father-in-law. Once a mechanic, now semi-retired, pushing 60, but still looked like he belonged on the cover of Men's Health. Broad shoulders, weathered hands, those cold steel eyes that always seemed to notice everything. "Where are you?" he asked, no hesitation in his voice. "I'm on my way." Within 30 minutes, his old but spotless Chevy pickup pulled up beside me. He stepped out, sleeves rolled, toolbox in hand. I couldn't help but notice how solid he looked. Maybe it was the way he moved. Calm, confident, no wasted energy. "Try starting it again," he said, leaning over the open hood. I turned the key. The engine coughed again. "Not the battery?" he muttered, wiping his hands with a rag. "We'll need to tow it to the shop." "I can call a tow," I started. "No need. I've got it. Get in," he said, opening the passenger door for me. Then, with a little smirk, "Buckle up, princess." Something fluttered in my chest. Once at the garage, he got to work immediately, focused, efficient. I stood to the side, watching the tension in his forearms, how the sweat glistened on his skin, the way he moved with purpose. "You want some coffee?" he asked suddenly. "Please," I admitted. I hadn't eaten anything all day. We walked into a small break room, old table, faded couch, strong scent of motor oil and fresh brew. Oddly cozy. "How are things with Brian?" he asked, pouring coffee into 2 chipped mugs. I scoffed. "Like this car, except he broke down a long time ago." Thomas chuckled low. He doesn't see you. That's his loss. I blushed and looked down at the coffee, my fingers trembling slightly. Tired? He asked, voice softer now. I shrugged, more like disappointed. He reached out and laid his hand over mine. There's still fire in you, Rachel. Shame he doesn't see it. Our eyes locked, and in that split second, I realized we had crossed an invisible line. And maybe I didn't want to go back. I told myself it was nothing, just a favor. He towed my car, helped me out, nothing more. But something had shifted. All day, I kept replaying the moment his hand touched mine, the look in his eyes, the sound of his voice when he called me princess. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror way too long. The usual grey cardigan felt lifeless. I grabbed a dress instead. Simple, black, tasteful, something I hadn't worn in years. A bit of gloss on the lips. Hair down. God, what was I doing? Just picking up the car, I muttered to myself. At the college, I tried to focus on my students, tried to stay grounded, but by late afternoon, I gave in and texted him, "Hey, is the car ready?" His response was instant. "Ready and waiting. I'll be here." When I walked into the shop, he was under the hood again. Same rolled up sleeves, same focused expression. He looked up, and his eyes scanned me. Slow, steady. "You didn't come dressed for car trouble," he said with a grin. I raised a brow. "And you notice a lot?" "I'm a mechanic. I notice details." He handed me the keys. His fingers brushed mine. Again, that electric jolt. "You want to double-check the work?" he asked. "Make sure I didn't forget a bolt?" I smiled. "Only if you offer coffee again." He led me back to the small break room, the scent of oil and strong coffee, now oddly familiar. Same table, same lighting, same magnetic silence. "Things still rough with Brian?" he asked, pouring us both a cup. I shrugged. "Like the engine you fixed, except he never even tried." He looked at me for a long moment. He's blind to what he has. I glanced away, heart pounding. My hands shook slightly as I lifted the mug. "You're tense," he said softly. "Just tired." He leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "You weren't always tired. I remember. You used to light up a room, Rachel, and you still do." I blinked hard, my throat tightening. This man who wasn't mine saw me more clearly than the one who vowed to love me. He reached out and placed his hand over mine again, firmer this time. "You're not invisible," he said. I didn't move, didn't speak. And then he whispered, "You're still in there. You just forgot who you are." My heart cracked open. I looked into his eyes, and for a moment, I didn't care if it was wrong. I just needed to feel something. Anything. But before I could say a word, my phone buzzed on the table. "Brian." I pulled away, stood up quickly. I should go. Thomas didn't try to stop me. He just nodded, the look in his eyes enough to keep me awake all night. As I walked out, I felt the heat of his gaze on my back. And all I could think was, now what happens if I go back? And what happens if I don't? The next few days, I did everything I could to stay away. No texts, no visits, no excuses. I kept my head down at work, cleaned the house top to bottom, cooked dinner, folded laundry, even organized the hallway closet, the one Brian hadn't opened in 3 years. But nothing helped. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Thomas's face, his hands, his voice. My body felt like it belonged to someone else, or maybe to someone I used to be. I wasn't sure what was worse, the guilt or the craving. Then came the text. "Hey, I noticed your hood wasn't fully latched. You should probably swing by, just to be safe." I stared at the screen for a full 5 minutes. I could say no. I should say no. Be there in 20. This time I chose my outfit more carefully. A soft green top, fitted jeans, and low boots. Nothing too obvious, but I knew exactly how I looked. A touch of mascara, just enough to feel dangerous. When I arrived, he was outside, leaning against the car, sleeves rolled up again, a little grease on his wrist. He smirked. "You're early?" I figured you'd scold me if the hood flew off on the freeway. He walked over, closer than he needed to. "Can't have that. You're too pretty to be roadkill." My heart fluttered. My brain screamed. I ignored both. As he opened the hood and adjusted the latch, I watched his hands move. Firm, focused. Then he paused. "Hand me that rag." I handed it to him, and our fingers touched, not by accident. "You're tense again," he said, not taking his eyes off me. "Long week." "It's only Wednesday." I laughed nervously. He stepped a little closer. "You look good, Rachel." I felt my pulse in my throat. "You don't look too bad yourself," I replied, softer than I meant to. He reached out, fingers grazing the hem of my sleeve. "Brian noticed this outfit?" He hasn't noticed anything in a long time. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. He just looked at me, like he was trying to read my soul. I took a step back. I should go. He caught my wrist, not roughly, gently, but firmly. "Are you afraid of me?" My breath hitched. Number, I'm afraid of myself. He stepped closer, his face just inches from mine. I could smell the faint scent of soap and oil, warmth radiated off him. My skin tingled. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. I didn't, I couldn't. And then it happened. Our lips met, soft at first, careful, then deeper, more real than anything I'd felt in years. When I pulled away, my heart was pounding, my lipstick smudged. He just looked at me, like he'd known this would happen all along. "I have to go," I whispered. "I know," he said, but he didn't move. Back in my car, I sat frozen for 5 minutes before starting the engine. When I got home, Brian was watching TV, phone in hand. He barely looked up. "Where were you?" he mumbled. "Ran into traffic," I said quickly. He nodded. "Dinner's in the microwave." I went to the bathroom, stared at my reflection. My cheeks were flushed, my lips were red, and for the first time in years, I felt alive.
Sorry to interrupt you, just for a moment. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to do so. It's completely free, takes just 5 seconds, and it means everything to me and to the growth of this channel. And if this story resonates with you, hit that like button. Thank you, truly, for your support. Now, let's get back to the story.
We started seeing each other. Not every day, not out in the open, but enough. Sometimes it was in his truck, parked on a back road outside of town. Sometimes it was at the garage after closing, when the lights were low and the world was quiet. One night, he drove me to an old cabin, said it used to be his family's fishing place. It was dusty and plain, but clean, safe, warm. He made tea on a tiny old stove, and we sat in silence, wrapped in a wool blanket, the sound of wind brushing the windows. He didn't touch me right away. He waited. For me. And when I leaned in, it wasn't lust. It was surrender. I woke up in his arms, no panic, no guilt, just stillness. And that scared me more than anything. When I got home, Brian was still asleep. The coffee pot was empty. My phone had no new messages. I moved through the house like a ghost. The woman he married, she wasn't home anymore. Later that day, Thomas texted, "Thinking about you. Still feel your heartbeat." I stared at it for 10 minutes, then replied, "Do you feel mine now?" That night, we met again. I didn't even try to come up with an excuse. Brian didn't ask. He never asked. In the break room, Thomas stood by the window, arms crossed. I wasn't sure you'd come. I took a breath. Neither was I. He walked over slowly. His fingers brushed my jaw, then slid down to my waist. You're shaking. I don't know what I'm doing anymore, I whispered. You're doing what you should have done a long time ago. He kissed me again, and this time I didn't pull away. I pressed into him like I was drowning and he was the only air left in the world. When I got home, Brian looked up from his phone for once. Where were you? With a friend, I said. He raised a brow. Which friend? One that remembers what it means to feel. He didn't speak, didn't move, just looked at me like I was a stranger. And maybe I was, because from that moment on, I stopped apologizing, even silently. And for the first time in years, I didn't lie to myself. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. We drove all night. Thomas didn't say where. I didn't ask. His hand was on my thigh the whole time, fingers tracing soft, invisible lines. I stared out the window as the highway rolled by. Small towns, empty fields, silence. Where are we going? I finally asked. He smiled, eyes still on the road. Somewhere we can breathe. We ended up at a little motel off Route 22, one of those places with flickering neon and creaky floors. It was cheap, quiet, anonymous. Inside, the room smelled like old carpet and air freshener. But when he pulled me into him, everything else disappeared. We didn't undress quickly. We didn't speak. It was slow, desperate, grateful. After, I lay there with my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Do you ever wish we met before I married Brian? I whispered. He ran his fingers through my hair. If I had, I never would have let you go. His words burned more than his touch. The next day, everything felt off. At the grocery store, I caught someone staring, just a second too long. At the parking lot near my job, a black SUV sat idling for 20 minutes. At home, the front door was slightly ajar when I arrived. Brian was inside, like always, but his smile felt thinner, his voice too calm. You've been busy lately, he said over dinner. I nodded. Work's been intense? He just smiled and cut into his chicken. Later that night, I got a message. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. You think no one sees you? My heart dropped. I showed it to Thomas the next day. He went quiet, then said, You're not being paranoid. Someone's watching, and it's not just Brian. I felt like the walls were closing in. But I still couldn't stop. When he texted, Come to the shop after close, I went. No hesitation. We didn't talk. We just touched, kissed, fell into each other like people who knew the ground was giving way. That night, as I drove home, I saw it. A phone left on the kitchen counter. The screen lit up. A photo. Me. Outside the motel. Thomas behind me. And Brian's voice from the hallway. Want to explain that? I didn't. I just stared. And then, for the first time in our entire marriage, he didn't yell. He simply walked past me, quiet and cold, and locked the bedroom door behind him. I texted Thomas one word. Everything. He replied instantly. I'm waiting. When I walked out that night, I didn't pack a bag, didn't leave a note, just keys on the counter. And the woman I used to be, I left. No suitcase, no plan. Just me, my coat, and the truth I could no longer bury. Thomas was waiting outside the shop, truck engine running, headlights painting long shadows across the parking lot. I climbed in. He looked at me. Really looked. "That's it?" he asked. I nodded. I walked out. "Are you sure?" "No." I was shaking, but I've never felt more awake. He didn't say anything, just reached for my hand, and we drove. The town disappeared behind us, fading into darkness like a dream I didn't want back. We drove in silence for a while, the kind that says more than words ever could. Eventually, we stopped at a lookout off the highway. The valley below shimmered with distant lights. It felt like we were floating above the world. Thomas turned toward me. "This won't be easy." "I know." He hesitated. "Brian's not going to just let this go. I don't expect him to." He squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens, you're not alone anymore." I stared out at the horizon, feeling something twist in my stomach. A mix of fear and freedom. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You really think you can just leave?" My blood ran cold. I showed it to Thomas. He read it once, then twice. "That's not Brian," he said quietly. "Then who is it?" He didn't answer. He just started the truck again. We kept driving. No destination, just movement. But no matter how far we went, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. You've just heard Rachel's story. A woman who wasn't trying to cheat or rebel or destroy. She was just trying to feel alive again. But tell me honestly, if you were in her place, stuck in silence in a love that no longer sees you, would you stay? Or would you do what she did and finally breathe? What do you think about her choice? About his role? Do you think they'll ever find peace or just more fire? Write your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one of them. And they mean the world to me. And hey, if this story touched you, please take a second to subscribe. Just 7 seconds of your time, but a huge support for me. Thank you for listening. Take care of your heart. I'll see you in the next story.